started off as a PG podcast, but then Devin just kept on dropping shits and fucks, and now...
That's right. We are live.
The ghost faced himself, Brandon Panev.
This isn't like the start of last season when it was just, it looked like the Canucks were just a beer league team not playing defense at all. And just before Chris goes, no, I'm kidding, Chris, you can actually go now.
No, hold on.
Oh, we had to give more time for coming on late. So.
I still had, hold on. All right. Chris go, and then I got something else to say at the end.
So, an elf and a midget in 2 back-to-back games. Yeah, he's definitely on a friendship tour for sure.
Saying, oh yeah, I'm okay with him being, the 6'7" defenseman. No! He is a AHL defenseman right now.
Look, Shonky, don't mind Devin, okay? We all struggle with Devin, so you know.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Shifts and Pucks podcast. We are live, Facebook.com, the Shifts and Pucks podcast, YouTube.com, the Shifts and Pucks podcast, Twitch.com, the Shifts and Pucks podcast, and then you can subscribe to wherever you get your audio as we are here on a regular Tuesday night because it was Valentine's Day yesterday. Did everyone know that? Of course, happy belated Valentine's Day to those, or what some call Single Awareness Day. I used to call it that. It doesn't really matter anymore to me. But that's what happens. The couples all needed to get together and be couples, and I was by myself watching hockey. So whatever. Anyway, so we're here. We've got lots to talk about. It's Canucks Talk. But we'll dig into that. Devin, it's been about 32 hours since we've last chatted.
Way too long.
I know. Too long. Far too long. Too long.
Yeah, but listen, I'm doing better than I was yesterday because I got to see Tyler Toffoli do his first play his first period as a Calgary Flame, and he did pretty damn well.
Yeah, I mean, he's so intimidating that Columbus is scoring on themselves. That's how much of an impact he's already making.
That's right.
Yes. Chris, what's going on?
Not too much, but did you guys know that the NHL actually does promotions and relegations now? Because the Calgary Canucks promoted from the AJHL to the NHL now.
Yeah, I don't know about that one.
It was a great effort, and it would probably work if the Canucks were ahead of the Flames in the standings, but they're not. So
I had to try at least.
It's an effort.
It's also an overdone bit at this point.
Yeah, well, especially with Toffoli. I mean, he wasn't a Canuck for that long, and he hasn't been a Canuck for quite a while since then. So. Yeah,
okay, everyone shit on Chris.
Well, you're not the only one to suggest it, Chris. But I'm not on board.
For for what it's worth, I haven't heard anyone else make it. I actually was just going off of thinking I was clever, but apparently I'm not.
Well, you are clever. That just wasn't one of your shining moments. There's Sean and Heidi, Chris and Hannah, Devin and Caitlin, but joining the couples group, Tyler.
Yeah, it's been a while. Yes, Tyler and Sydney are a thing.
Tyler and Sydney.
Yes.
You're going to put another shrimp on the Barbie?
You guys need to calm down with this, okay? You guys need to calm down with this.
There's no such thing as calm in this group there, Tyler.
Do you know who you're talking to?
Yeah. You were expecting maturity from us?
Well, like a modicum of maturity, a sliver of maturity.
You were expecting a sliver of maturity from us?
Yeah. Well, from three of you, Devin, like I said in the intro, we all struggle with Devin. So
I'm gonna nickname her Australia. In Australia, you need to run right now in the farthest direction. That's probably south. You don't want to go further north, but go south and go visit Kevin.
Sydney, stay there. You're fine.
Yeah.
Anyway, we got quite a bit to get into. And we're probably going to get into a lot of debate, but we have to start with the big news of the biggest news story of the weekend. It is the division rival Devin and I did do a live reaction podcast yesterday with our thoughts on the Tyler Toffoli trade from the Flames more from the Flames perspective. We didn't touch on it from the Habs perspective, but we'll get into this here. And then we will dig into what this might mean for the Canucks in a couple of different ways. But we'll start with Tyler. We haven't heard from Tyler in a long time, by the way. It's been weeks since you've been on this thing.
Yeah.
It's totally understandable. But we'll start with you, and then we'll go to Chris next, and then Sean. Just your thoughts on the trade of Tyler Toffoli to the Calgary Flames.
Yeah, I mean, a really great pickup for the Flames, obviously. They have big hopes for the postseason this year, and that's a nice add to make well in advance of the trade deadline, when inevitably there'd probably be a lot of suitors for Tyler Toffoli. From the Habs side of it, it's just another unfortunate reminder of how quickly the fall from grace has occurred here. And some interesting comments from Marty St. Louis, the new coach there today, about how he viewed Toffoli as kind of the captain there that wasn't wearing the C. So apparently it's going to be more than a statistical loss for the Montreal Canadiens, but also quite the presence in the locker room there. But great move for the Calgary Flames, and we'll see how he fits in.
Yeah, depending on if they make any other moves, this might be Treliving's like putting all the chips in the center of the table all in kind of year. It definitely makes the Flames seem like a legitimate cup contender at this point, now that they picked up another piece of offense, because they definitely were wanting to shore up their secondary scoring. If they can make a pickup on defense, then I think they're legit scary at that point. But yeah, definitely a good pickup for the Flames.
Yeah, it was a steep price to pay, but Tyler Toffoli has the ability to score 20 goals. He scored 30 goals once in his career as well, and 28 last year in 52 games. And he's also not a one-trick pony. So Devin must be very happy about that part. And he's a good two-way guy. You can put him you can play him shorthanded, and you can play all situations, and he's going to be able to add depth to that lineup, whether or not he plays on the quote unquote third line or he pushes someone down. So yeah, the Flames are a better team with Tyler Toffoli than they were with Tyler Pitlick.
Devin, did you after some reflection, did you have anything to add on?
Well, I don't think it's that much of a steep price in consideration to what the Flames gave up. It's a fantastic pickup. We've been, like we said yesterday, the Calgary Flames have been looking for a right shot, right winger since Jerome left, and that's been a decade, just over a decade of waiting and seeing. Yes, he's not a everyday first liner, but God, that depth that he brings to this already bolstered lineup for the top two lines, especially the past three games, that top line has been absolutely amazing. And just recently, that Backlund, Mangiapane, and Coleman line have been firing pretty damn well. So adding someone like Toffoli to the mix, I don't think that's a steep price for a first, fifth Pitlick, which is a salary dump, and Heinonen.
Sorry, you're right.
Heineman. Yeah.
You had to do that with your new microphone. You just had to.
I know.
It's the bassy, dulcet tones there.
It's a fun new toy. Yeah. Yeah, so many different things you could take away from that, especially with yesterday being Valentine's Day. But I digress. The fact that Calgary didn't give up one of their top end prospects, I think, is a massive win for the Flames. And not saying that the Canadiens got the short end of the stick, but they definitely have another first round pick in this next year's draft, and it's going to be a bit higher, obviously, within the last third of the draft, but it gives them another lottery pick to potentially get another potential core piece going forward. And not saying Heineman. Heineman isn't going to be an NHLer, but if he's going to be in the NHL as of right now, I don't see him going past maybe 3 years of being in the bottom 6.
Heineman is a B-level prospect, and you gave up a B-level prospect, a first-round pick, and a 5th, essentially, to get Tyler Toffoli. And Heineman was also part of the Sam Bennett trade. So if you look at the 2 trades that led up to this, the Flames now have Tyler Toffoli and a 2022 second-round pick from Florida, and they gave up Sam Bennett, a 2022 first-round pick, a 2022 fourth-round pick, a 2022 sixth-round pick, and a 2023 fifth-round pick.
It sounds like Sean's been doing some spreadsheet work here.
It sounds like that. No, but I still don't think that that's terrible. I'm
not saying it's terrible. It's a steep price to pay, but it's a very understandable price to pay for the Flames, who are playing really well. Are with Tkachuk, Gaudreau, and Lindholm being one of the best lines in the league, if not the best line in the league right now. You've got Markstrom and Vladar pitching shutouts left, right, and center. And then you've got a solid defense as well.
Yeah,
so
I'll add to that as well. Of course, Daryl Sutter and Tyler Toffoli's connection with the Kings in the past there as well, I think makes this more of a sure bet in their mind.
Yeah, I think in our group chat, I came across very shocking. I'm not saying it's a bad trade for the Flames at all. I just think it is still a steep price to pay, and especially when you consider the 2 trades that led up to it, right? That's a lot of assets going out the door for essentially Tyler Toffoli. And arguably, I think you've got 2 comparable in terms of comparable impact players in Sam Bennett and Tyler Toffoli on either side of it. So the fact that they did not give up a Dustin Wolf, a Connor Zary, a Jacob Pelche, or a Matthew Coronado is huge. And they should be very happy about that. The one thing I am surprised in is that it wasn't a Valimaki or a Dubé going the other way. And I think those guys are also B-level assets at this point. I know Flames fans are high on both of them, but I'm gonna borrow something from our intro. I'm gonna borrow something that Devin said about Luke Schenn. Juuso Valimaki is an AHL defenseman right now. Whether or not he becomes more than that is still up in the air. Yes, he has had some. You've got now friend of the show, Peter Labardius, is very high on him, and other people are as well. But he still needs to prove it. And he's been up at the NHL level, hasn't been able to make it stay, and now he's down in the AHL, and he's still not playing. Whether he's injured or suspended or whatever, they're still not playing him, and that's a huge issue.
He's injured right now.
Yeah, but he also got suspended for a couple of games too.
Just to pick up on what Sean said about it being an understandably high price that they paid, but there's it's understandable why they would. I mean, I know there's not a lot of talk around Brad Treliving's future with the Flames, but it's been a long time for him to do something, to have something big occur with his team in the playoffs, right? So one, they want to firm up their actual playoff spot. That's not a certainty yet. And two, actually do something when they get there. So it's entirely understandable for me from an outside perspective to see them feeling the urge to load up here when it looks like things are favorable for doing that.
And the fact that they still have 2 more years on Toffoli's contract at 4.25, I think, was an extra part of that being super beneficial for the Flames.
Now, sorry, Kev, go for it.
I was just going to say the other thing that is important to put into this is next year, if you're keeping Johnny Gaudreau and Matthew Tkachuk, that's $20 million on 2 players. So history is showing it, and it's becoming one of those debates that I think in hockey is the price to pay in terms of your salary around getting that Stanley Cup. And it is hard to win Stanley Cups when you have two players at $20 million. Sorry, Devin. But that is something that has to be considered here. So you almost wonder if the Flames have not one. I was thinking about this, and maybe we'll discuss this more even with Ryan Pinder tomorrow. I wonder if the Flames have two more moves in them, and one that they may swing for offense.
Yeah, potentially. They could still have I think they have something in the chamber there, and that could be shot off at any point. But I think what True Living has been saying for the past 2 days or day and a half is that he's waiting to see exactly what this incarnation of the Flames looks like. And if he thinks that there need to be something else to be added, then he'll do that. And best case scenario is that Juuso Välimäki comes back and is that kind of deadline acquisition, if you will, to help bolster that lineup or that defensive core. Well, not core, but ideally you want to have at least 8 to 9 NHL defensemen in your system that can jump in at any point and play. Ideally for the playoffs, you want to make sure you have that depth. And if you have Juuso Välimäki a part of that group, that's massive. And if he's going to be able to play. So there definitely could be, for sure. I mean, realistically right now, within Johnny Gaudreau, Matthew Tkachuk, and if we're looking into next year, and Mangiapane, realistically, you're probably looking around $25 million off that cap of the estimated $27 million. So which isn't really that bad in consideration, like Chris was saying, having that second year. He's not a rental. You're having him for 2 years, and some might say that it might be a bit of a high cap hit, but the way that this version of the Calgary Flames is built, I'd take that any day.
As far as swinging for the fences goes, I mean, it depends how much appetite they have to trade away any more of their future, right? And then the appetite will depend on what the offer is in return. But as I mentioned earlier, great to be able to make this move now and still have more than a month before you actually reach the trade deadline. So they are far from the 11th hour here in terms of having to make that call whether they're going to take a swing for the fence or not. So. If it looks like things are trending in the right direction here, then yeah, I think there's definitely another big deal on the way. But we'll see how the next 4 or 5 weeks goes.
Is it safe to assume that Sherratt or the Flames are out on Sherratt now? Because there was a rumor that at one point the package for Toffoli also included him. So the fact that it didn't end up going through, I wonder if that means that they're totally giving up on potentially getting him.
I don't think so.
I hope so. Actually, I'm with Devin on that. I don't think that Sherratt would be a smart ad. I think
he doesn't
the price
fit what they need either.
And I think that would cost. I think the price for that is too high, and I would let another team overpay. I think there are some other options out there that I think might be a better fit.
I've said it before. I think they need someone who can help be a better puck mover.
Yeah.
Like you literally have 2 Ben Sherratts on that bottom pair right now, and Eric Branson and Nikita Zadorov. Why do you need to add another? And Dev, to your point about Välimäki potentially being a deadline ad, I'd argue that Connor Mackey is higher up on that depth chart right now.
Well, either way, they have someone in the system that could potentially step in.
Yeah. But if it was me, I'd be looking for someone who can potentially be a puck mover, even if that means they're playing bottom pair minutes 5-on-5, but they're on the power play, because I think that is having a true power play quarterback, defenseman quarterbacking that power play could be a game changer for them. Right now, they've been swapping around with players on that first unit, and none of them have stuck. So I think it would be a decent. And I know, Kevin, you've brought this name up a few times in Eric Gustafsson. And right now, I think that might, if they can't swing for the fences and get a true top 4 defenseman to do that, then maybe that's something they look at. But I think if they can swing for the fences and get a true top 4 D-man who can play, who on their team is playing quote unquote third pair with either Goodbranson or Zadorov, and it is quarterbacking that power play. That'd be huge for them.
I don't know if they're in on one though. If you look at the way that Daryl Sutter has really bolstered this lineup, Zadorov's been in there 90% of the time. Obviously, he thinks that he brings a certain level of it factor to this lineup because he can skate. Yeah, he has the wow factor of every once in a while to really do well. But overall, it's one of those things where if there was going to be a player coming out of that lineup, it would be a Zadorov because Goodbranson has been a mainstay in that number 5 position. So yeah, it would be nice to bolster that lineup, that back end a little bit more. But overall, I think Daryl Sutter is decently happy with what he's gotten out of them.
And just before we end this part of the conversation on the Flames, I also think the Tyler Toffoli acquisition means that they will be moving out a big money player in the offseason.
Yeah, I think.
Who do you think then?
Sean Monahan would be my first choice. Would be my first guess. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a GM out there who would maybe overpay for a Michael Backlund. But one thing I do want to put out there right now is maybe they buy out Lucic and then sign him back on a cheaper deal, because you can't do that with it was only compliance buyouts that you couldn't do that with. If you do it that way, then you're.
Oh. How many years does he have left?
1.
He has 1, and I think the buyout is $1 million right next year.
His salary next year is $1 million. His cap it is what, 5 or 6 as of right now.
6.
So that could be actually one of the ones that you could move in the offseason to somebody who needs to get to the cap floor, but doesn't want to spend money.
Yeah. And Arizona, they'll need to fill that 5,000 seat arena with some players. So, Milan Lucic could be a guy that
you just had to work that in there somehow.
It's just brilliant.
Not only that, but 2/3 of the roster is gone after this season for Arizona, so they'll have some room in cap space.
So Mr. Positive Spin, Kevin, you're off that one now. You're
well, yeah, no. Look, it's going to be the universe. We'll get to that later, but it's going to be exciting to watch the actual University of Arizona Sun Devils in the National Hockey League. People are not seeing the whole positive of this.
Yeah, you know what? I think what they should do is sign the 50-year-old that is Jaromir Jagr. And then get some people in there. Let's go, but get some $1 beers, and then you get the traveling Jagrs down there and just be a fucking party.
Exactly.
Although if there are only 5,000 seats or less than that, you better believe those will be $20 beers and $250 tickets.
Okay. I think Lucic is more maybe a trade option. The buyout option doesn't work for them. His cap hit on the buyout would be still 4.6. So I just looked that up, but I think I do think that with this addition, with the need to sign Tkachuk, the need to sign Tkachuk, Gaudreau, Mangiapane all need new deals. Let alone you've also got Shillington who needs a new deal as well. Between those 4. You're probably locking yourself up with the majority of the $28 million that they have in cap space going into next season, and they still have to fill up the roster. So they definitely will have to move out salary.
Just a quick question: if you can look up Monahan's buyout, because that could be another option as well, considering he has 1 year left and he is he's over $5 million player. I know that. Because I don't think that you want to get rid of a mainstay in the room as a Lucic, because he's very well liked in that dressing room. We know this. So it'd be a hard pill to swallow to buy him out or even just trade him. But I think the trade option as far as economics go would be the best move overall. But what's Monahan's buyout?
A Monahan buyout would save the Flames $4 million on the cap. So instead of being, 6 something, 6.375, he would be 2.375 on the cap. So that there's a legit buyout option for the Flames in the offseason.
Yeah, fair. Well, we can dig into that more with Ryan Pinder, but let's direct this into the Canucks purview here, because I do think, there's a couple of ways from a Canucks angle that we can look at this, and the first way is, and I saw this on Twitter, and I'm not saying that Twitter is the be all end all, but I think that we're smart enough to address this on a couple of different angles, and we've debated the value of a JT Miller trade, but in terms of the JT Miller, the option of trading JT Miller and that cost of trading JT Miller, does this impact this in your mind in any way?
No,
I don't think so either.
Yeah, I agree.
I think his price is higher. He is a center. He is a center and can play the wing. And is producing at a much significantly better rate than Tyler Toffoli is this season, and has done it for the past couple seasons as well. So I don't think it really does.
And is only $500,000 more expensive than Toffoli.
I think that you would pay a little bit more, knowing what the acquisition cost is, and basically the Calgary Flames just set the market unless another team decides to blow it out of the water, essentially. So I think it brings more value to a Miller trade if that's going to happen, and might set the bar for a Garland trade if that's a possibility as well.
I'm not much of a believer in one trade involving other teams having a huge impact on other teams making deals, especially in a salary cap system. I mean, that's kind of really what sort of forces you into making certain deals. You got those constraints there, but also the level of motivation for the trade partners to make a deal as well, right? And we've been hearing these comments from Jim Rutherford about how they're not going to be in any rush to make trades, right? So I suspect he's going to take a very patient, hold the line approach here in making any kind of deals. Whereas with the previous management, there was that pressure on them to progress and do something, and that's not there now. So, yeah, maybe there's a marginal impact there, but I don't think very much.
Sorry, Chris. I'm just going to quickly interrupt because Jean Yi in the chat here. You can't send JT to the Flames if you're Rutherford on the chance he resigns there. Nowhere. Resigns there, no way. We've already had this discussion. JT Miller is not a fit on the Flames. We have agreed and scientifically concluded that that's not an option. Like,
unless you trade Toffoli.
Yeah, right. It's not. That's not a fit. So I don't think that's what. I'm not meaning that JT Miller comes to the Flames. I'm talking about the market for JT Miller. Just to clarify. Yeah. Sorry, Chris. Go ahead. Yeah.
All good. In addition to Rutherford making comments that we're not in a rush, like, I think we would have to literally be blown out of the water by the offer if we were to make a Miller trade in season. If anything, there's going to be roster moves in the off season, but not until then.
I also think that the Habs were feeling the need to make a move now after seeing Ben Sherratt go down to injury, and he is a major. He's supposed to be a major trade chip for them in this coming up to this deadline. So I think there was a little bit there, and plus I think that they're with Patrick Allvin and co. Let's remember he's the GM, not Jim Rutherford. And I know there's a lot of everyone just wants this because Trader Jim and all that. It's Patrick Allvin, and Rutherford goes out of his way to say it all the time. So Patrick Allvin and the management team that they've just put together, are still actually probably doing a little more assessment on the roster here, and I think they have the ability to be a little more picky on the return. With the Habs, it's a full on rebuild at this point, right? I think, and Rutherford has said it, and Allvin has said it, that they're looking a little. They're not looking at a full rebuild here. So I think a JT Miller trade is going to be. They're gonna target certain players on certain teams,
Well, that's if they're even open to trading him at all. And I mean, everything should be on the table, but JT Miller is one of those guys that I'm sure there's a lot. There's debates internally, and there's a good debate within the fan base as to whether he's a core must keep piece or not. So it's really hard to say where the organization is at with him.
Mm-hmm, and I think that's still being debated within that management group as well. Yeah. So I think they will have to be blown out of the water, and it's going to be a make me basically say I can't say no to a trade offer at this point. I still think that he's not going to lose much value, if any value at all, if you trade him at the draft, in and around the draft. So it's not I don't think there's any real rush to do it, and I think it's just going to be something that will have to blow them out. They'll have to get a certain prospect or young player back in return, as well as a first, and then whatever else to make it work. But if they say it's the Rangers and they're offering, what we're seeing is it's like Philip Chytil, Niels Lundqvist in the first, and everyone's saying that Chytil's okay, but he's not necessarily someone that they would be super excited about. If they're going after a right shot young defenseman that the Rangers have, they're going to want Braden Schneider. He fits the mold of what they kind of need more. So if they don't get that, they don't need to say yes to any trade offer here.
I also think
it also pivots on whether or not he wants to be there. I have a feeling that, and this is just a feeling, that with his passport being in the U.S. and the way that Canada has been for the past little bit, I know things are changing here, but maybe he wants to go home. Maybe he wants to go to the States, right? I think that is the biggest question. Does he want to be a Vancouver Canuck, not a Calgary Canuck? That's the AJHL. I think that's one of the biggest questions that you got to ask each other, the player. And I'm not saying that he doesn't want to be there, but where is his heart?
Yep, you do want to put that in there, but I don't think that I don't think that will change how they approach it going up to the deadline here, because I think they still got all the lead up to the draft, and there'll be more teams with more cap room available to work with at the draft than that would be available to them at the deadline right now, without making the deal very complicated.
I also think the Canucks can afford to be more pragmatic than the Habs on two levels. One, the Habs, I've used this term with the Flames before, but I do think that is a bit of a damaged brand in Montreal. You had the situation with Logan Mailloux last year, which was a tremendous PR disaster for the Canadiens, as well. You've got the potentially. And I bring this up potentially because of what Devin has said. The draft is supposed to be in Montreal next year, but depending on, and Gary Bettman did say this at the All-Star break, if things don't change, they may have to consider moving it. So if you're Montreal, you need to acquire draft picks, and you need to make sure that you're in the middle of things pretty quick, and that you're in a midst of announcing your fans base that you're in a rebuild. The Canucks, you can debate where they are at or not, but I don't think they need to be in a hurry to make any trades to put themselves in any. I think they have put themselves in a position to give them time to make the proper decision. And I think one of the things that I think with Patrick Allvin that this seems to be the first thing that I've noticed is he's not really sharing the spotlight, and people are forgetting he's the general manager. But I think he has an opportunity here to be pragmatic. And I think for the Canucks overall, I think the previous regime was in panic mode, was in Peter Chiarelli mode. I think right now you can just stay calm. You don't have to trade Miller now. You don't have to make any trades now. You can actually go through that deadline, and I don't think you can. I think there's a reasonable argument to say, we can just leave it as is and hope, and we'll see where we're at, and we'll wait for the offseason.
Yeah, and we don't want to have a situation where they get pressured into making a deal just for the sake of making a deal to keep the fans happy somehow, right? Like that's that the pressure point of doing an in-season move with a deadline to meet that causes me some concern that they end up making a deal that they regret. Whereas in the off season, and a lot more cap flexibility amongst the teams to make deals, they could probably get a better sale on a guy like a JT Miller than they might during the season. So, if I would hope that the Canucks do take the approach of selling at the deadline and make good deals, but not be rushed into making one just for the sake of optics.
Yeah, I
Twitter
agree with
doesn't
everyone.
No? Okay.
Sorry,
Chris?
what did Devin say?
Yeah, I didn't hear Devin either.
So Canucks Twitter doesn't run the Vancouver Canucks, is what you're saying.
Not anymore, they don't.
Oh, okay. All right. I always got to get these clarifications,
I mean, they still will Canucks Twitter, but yeah, as far as having enough pressure on the betting regime, those days are gone.
No, I mean the fans that run the team are the ones that show up at Rogers Arena and boo the management and the coach, evidently, as we saw earlier this year. That feels like a lifetime ago now, doesn't it?
I know. It feels like it, yeah.
Like it's so, yeah.
And it was only 2 months ago.
I know.
Or 2.5, I guess.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only player of note that has a UFA for the Canucks this coming off season is Tyler Mott. So that'll be someone they have to look at, and I think one of the players you have to look at in regards to that is where's Will Lockwood at? Because I think that's someone who everyone has in the past pegged as potentially a penalty killer, fourth line, maybe someone who can pop up into your third line type of player. Is he ready to take that next step? But even then, Tyler Mott's 26. He'll turn 27 in March. I still think he's someone that you keep. I still think he's someone that you sign to a 2-3 year deal and at a decent rate and go from there.
And I've heard some media members mention that Mott is very much a Rutherford type of player. So I wouldn't be surprised if they try and hold on to him if they can.
Speed, tenacity, can penalty kill. Like he fits the role for sure.
And obviously, when he's healthy, he play like he was putting up points last year. He was killing it in consideration to what the Canucks were expecting out of him. Now, I mean, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, what last well it was like the playoffs where he put five he had 4 goals in 17 games last year, and before he got injured he had 6 goals and 9 points in 24 games. This season he's done pretty good too. He's 5 goals and 10 points in 34. Like
I'd say he's outplayed that contract.
Yeah. I think it's something that you have to look at, and I think they all are. And yeah, I don't think they said if that, and you look at that, and if say they do come to an agreement with Tyler Mott going into this before the deadline, then what are the true quote unquote selling options out there for that Canucks could sell? Alex Chiasson?
Well, I've heard Brock Besser's name thrown around there a lot. And it like legitimately, not just from B-level media people.
I think that's more speculation because, again, we're talking about a team that has, he does need a new deal next year. He hasn't quite performed up to what his qualifying offer will be. But he's also looked a lot better under Bruce Boudreau. And he's still, that he is a 20-goal scorer in this league. So I just look at that and I go, again, I think it's something that will especially in the leading up to the deadline, it'll have to be an absolutely, we can't say no offer for them to even think about moving him.
I mean, the options that I'm hearing are I think are out there are Luke Shen, Jason Dickinson could be an option. I mean, maybe Tyler Mott. But here's the thing. Like, look, I don't want to get people's hopes up here, but they're 5 points out of the playoffs with the same amount of games as the Anaheim Ducks. Sorry, Dylan, friend of the show, Dylan here. But like, they're not out of this. And I'm not saying they should make a stretch to try to make I'm not saying that they should buy to get into the playoffs, but you have made some really good progress under Bruce Boudreau in terms of where you were at the start of the year. Why not just, I guess for me, the more I think about this, I would just stay the course right now. Let's see, like at this particular point, for the rest of this month at least, let's stay the course. Let's see where they're at. And then when it comes to closer to the trade deadline, you can assess that. But they're not out of anything. They're not Winnipeg. They're not San Jose. They're not Chicago. They're in this. So why are we having like, well, we got to get rid of everybody?
Well, that might sound that way. I don't know if everybody feels that. I'm not feeling like we got to get rid of everybody, but I think most fans and observers of the Canucks are realistic in seeing that they're a middling team. Yeah, they could make a push and squeak in, but this isn't the beginning of the season where hope is eternal, and there's all this optimism. I mean, now it's a little more realistic to see what they have, even after a bump from a coaching change. So while they're not out of it, I mean, I think even at the level of ownership, I think the latitude is there for this group to make the call to sell and not get too excited about, maybe only being 3 or 4 points out of a playoff spot, because realistically for them to actually get there, they're probably going to need to add depth, which means now buying and mortgaging more of the future to do that. So I don't favor that move. It'd be nice to see them in the playoffs. Playoff puck is always exciting, especially now that they can have fans again. At 100% capacity,
yes,
by the way, as was announced today. But it's just not realistic, right? Once you've put in a new management group and a new coach, it changes the whole discussion around timelines and pressure to make something now. And it would be nice from my perspective to see them take a patient approach here and build for next year.
Yeah, I'm not saying buy. I'm not saying like go for it. I'm saying let's see what this team can do in a situation where they are not out of the playoffs, but they have a chance to get in. So
yeah, I just don't think they have the depth even to do that, Kevin. At this point, they'd have to do something to push it a little further.
I think if you look at, go Chris.
I imagine that like Rutherford's reputation of Trader Jim, and I know Sean said that Patrick Allvin is the GM and that we need to remember that, but the whole Trader Jim reputation, I think, probably has played a factor into all this speculation too.
It is. I think it totally has, and I'm with Tyler. I think that if they were closer in and they were like looking at it, going, okay, maybe we do have a chance here, and they would have to buy. I also don't think it's a buy or sell binary question here. I think you could potentially do both. Honestly, you could look at buying a good player that can help them next year and the year after, but you could also be looking at selling off spot players that maybe don't think fit the mold of that Bruce Boudreau led team, a Patrick Allvin led team, a Rutherford led team is going to want. So I think I think they could do both, honestly. I think that might be one of the reasons why there's the talk about losing cap. I think that's the big one. And I know everyone, as soon as they said losing cap, everyone immediately gravitated towards a JT Miller. And then there was the whole Connor Garland thing. And I'll say this right now, I don't think there's any legs to that. I think that was pure. That was something that maybe got leaked from the other side in terms of, well, we kind of talked about him, and then the game of telephone happened, and next thing you know, Connor Garland being talked to. Like, no, I don't think there's any serious legs to that. On Donnie and Dolly today, Rick Dollywell was talking about how he doesn't think, talking exactly this, how he doesn't think that there's any urgency to make a trade. And then, but the key point that I heard in during that clip was that Donnie piping up that they weren't happy with Garland being the Garland name being brought up. I don't think they have any. I think he's someone that they want to hold on to. I'm pretty sure you talk about Tyler Mott being a Jim Rutherford player. Pretty sure Connor Garland is too. So it's just I think it's, they said, yeah, Jason Dickinson may be a player that they look at moving at the deadline, before the deadline. I think maybe if they I think maybe one of the things is maybe you can find a way to sell off, Jason Dickinson for a couple assets, and then use one of those assets to maybe help facilitate a move on maybe a Travis Hominick or a Tucker Pullman to open up more cap space. Maybe that's a little bit pie in the sky thinking, but maybe that's kind of what they're hoping that they can do, type deal. It's not moving out cap doesn't mean that it's going to be a top end player. So I think it's, and then we'll see what happens. But I think it is, yeah. What I want to see is not necessarily a buy or sell approach. What I want to see is a look towards next season and the season after, and whatever moves they make helps them facilitate making the team better for the 2022-23 season and the 23-24 season.
Yeah, Kevin, you mentioned not just Dickinson, but Tyler Mott and Luke Schenn. Then to me, those are good in-season trade deadline moves for a team that's looking to add a piece. And I think a deal could be consummated where they're not feeling forced into it at the 11th hour. Like those ones are more realistic for me. And then you're still keeping what is the current core in place if you want to have those pieces there next year. So those make a lot more sense to me for the Canucks. And I mean, Mott certainly opened some eyes with his playoff performance in the bubble hockey, and then obviously Luke Schenn with his resume. I'm sure there's lots of interest out there to add a depth defenseman with his pedigree and his resume.
I know there's definitely a lot of Leaf fans that have been, or Toronto-based media people that have been speculating about potentially the Leafs going after Schenn.
So you mean Toronto media / fans? No, just kidding.
Specifically, it was Steve. Why am I forgetting his last
Dangle?
name? Dangle? Yeah, Dangle and Merrick that I remember specifically that mentioned Schenn.
We don't need an AHL defenseman.
Also, how has that aged well? That intro clip.
The fact that that the Canucks have to use a Luke Schenn says a lot.
To be fair to him, though,
he hasn't played like terribly. He's adequate.
He's been an NHL defenseman this season.
He has been, I think,
more than serviceable. He's put a good performance out there.
He's definitely playing higher up in the lineup than he should be. Like he should be a bottom pair defenseman. But yeah, out of the three guys who are all essentially the same type of player in Hominick, Pullman, and Schenn, he's been the best of the bunch. And
the Leafs are a good example of a team that's on the cusp here of a breakthrough in the playoffs. I know we like to make fun of them, but objectively they're close, right? But that's a depth piece that if they get an injury post trade deadline, that could sink their chances on the back end. And if you have a guy like Luke Schenn that can step in there on your third pair, that's a sensible fit for me, I think.
Yeah,
you talked earlier about how going into the playoffs you need 8 to 9 NHL defensemen. I'd take Luke Schenn over Juuso Välimäki right now.
Well, yeah, that's cherry picking, man. Holy shit!
I knew he'd like that one.
It's like a no shit moment. Like God.
Okay, let's throw something out there then. Not Välimäki. What about versus Zadorov?
Zadorov, I take Zadorov over Luke Schenn. Absolutely.
I'd take Schenn. And
I'll
tell you why. I would actually. And I'll tell you why. I trust Luke Schenn more than I trust Nikita Zadorov and his adventures out there. There's times that you get wonderful things from Nikita Zadorov, but there's times you don't get wonderful things from Nikita Zadorov. You get a pretty dependable guy from Luke Schenn, can play minutes, and he's got one of these. Aaron Donald pointed at this finger, like at the ring finger. He's got one of those, and I think those are the type of people that you want for a cup run. And Luke Schenn he was a high draft pick for sure, and he never turned out to be what everyone wanted him to be, but I think he's turned to what he needed to be in the National Hockey League. I would take Luke Schenn over Nikita Zadorov. And even the categories, he's wanting to chime in there.
Also, 2 rings.
Yeah.
Hey,
Sarah.
I throughout his entire career, he's been mediocre. And yes, that might be the fact that he was such a high draft pick, but yeah, he's serviceable. Yeah. Okay. But I feel if you are relying on that, oh fuck, Sean, you go.
No, I think we're all in agreement, Devin. We're not saying bring in Luke Schenn to be part of your top 4 and rely on him night to night, but he's more than serviceable. He's a credible NHL defenseman this season the way he's been playing.
Yeah. And yes, the Canucks defense is weak, but the fact that he's had that chemistry with Quinn, I think, has helped him be able to play higher up than he probably should be.
I'd argue there's a legitimate argument from the Canucks perspective to keep him. I think that you could keep him, and I don't think it hurts. I mean, it depends what you get for him, but he would be a guy that would you can. I'm not saying you build a defense around him, but he's fit well with Quinn Hughes. But he's service. I think he's. I don't think the Canucks. It would be a bad thing if he remained with the Canucks. I'm not saying that they shouldn't trade him, but
Yeah, I mean, if I had to place money on it, I would expect he probably gets moved, and you'd hope that there's some kind of decent draft capital that comes the other way.
Yeah. Well, what were you going to say, Sean? Before we say adieu to Jack?
I was actually just kind of looking at some comparison of Zadorov and Luke Schenn, and I think the big the possession numbers for Zadorov over Luke Schenn are in Zadorov's favor, but he also starts nearly 60% of his shifts in the offensive zone, while Luke Schenn starts significantly less, before under about 46% in the offensive zone. So yeah, I understand. Like I said, Dev, I completely agree with you. If you shouldn't be relying on Luke Schenn to be a quote unquote top 4 defenseman, and that's one of the biggest issues with the Canucks is that blue line is not well constructed. And as I said, and the fact that he's outplaying 2 guys who are making a combined total of basically like over $5 million, I think, if I remember correctly, about Poolman and Hominick's cap hits.
Hamonic is 3.
It's 2. Yeah, it's
and Poolman is 2.5.
Yeah. So yeah, $5.5 million, and he's outplaying them both. But that's a major issue on the Canucks for sure. And I think we've been saying it for a while. Even going back into the preseason, it was like that was a huge question mark. And yeah, I think it is just it was a huge question mark going into the season, and it turned out to be a not good blue line.
Yeah. But we have to say adieu to Devin. But Devin is back tomorrow. Devin is bringing a friend with him tomorrow. Devin, who is joining us tomorrow for some Flames
Ryan
talk?
Pinder is going to be joining us. The loudmouth, lovable idiot that he is. And I'm not saying that behind his back. I'd say the exact same thing to his face.
You did on Twitter, actually, didn't you?
Yeah, totally. So tune in tomorrow at around 3:30 to 4 o'clock Mountain Standard Time, and it'll be an interesting talk with him. He always brings a little it factor, whether you like him or not. So tune in for that. It'll be a good time.
I bet, yeah.
But guys, lovely talking to you as always. I got a header, but hey, just try and get some more airtime for Chris and Tyler and Kevin, so Sean can shut up. For the love of God.
Yeah, it was nice seeing you too, Devin.
Yeah. I'll get back on your case in a little bit here, Tyler. All right.
Okay.
All right. Follow me on Twitter at Gordhouse09. Love you guys.
Love you. That's Devin heading away.
Yes.
We'll touch on a couple of other Canuck issues, but maybe we'll take this time to do our ad now. Actually, we'll do two announcements at the same. So Sean, do yours, and then I'll do one here at this point, since we're in the advertising space.
If you've listened to us for a while, you know this. We have partnered with the Pig and Duke pubs in Calgary and are part of their Pig and Puck Club. They have two locations. You can go and join the Pig and Puck Club, the downtown location at 503 4th Ave Southwest, and the neighborhood pub at 1312 12th Ave Southwest. The members of the Pig and Puck Club get game day specials when they go to either pub and to watch Canucks and Flames games. Members are also entered to a draw, are able to enter a draw for tickets to the April 23rd game at the Saddle Dome between the Flames and Canucks. The Shifts and Pucks podcast has 2 tickets to give away as part of the Pig and Puck Club. And you can enter our draw for them by retweeting any of our episodes or pod clips on Twitter, or DMing us the word of the week on Twitter or Facebook. And a retweet will gain you 1 entry, and a DM of the word of the week will gain you 3 entries. This week's word of the week is patience. And we just want to thank Joe and Steven and everyone at the Pig and Duke for supporting the podcast.
I might have went with a different word, but your call, whatever. I might have went with trade.
We're still a month away. We can use that a different week.
Well, the Flames made the trade, right? And we do talk anyway. But that's fine. Let's touch on a couple of other things here with the Canucks here. Cammi Granato has joined the Canucks from the Kraken in the AGM role. She was part of the Kraken's scouting staff before pre-expansion. Of course, she lives up here with Ray Ferraro, her husband. Good. I don't think there's really much that hasn't been said that we can add to this conversation. It's a good hire, a good person to have in. But I think I don't know anything else that we could add to this, but I think it's important that we do discuss Cammi Granato is here.
Yeah, I have to say I'm a little bit surprised that they were able to get her from the Kraken, but credit to the Kraken organization for letting her pursue an opportunity to move up in an organization. And obviously it's great for her. She's been in Vancouver for a long time with Ray, as you mentioned there, Kevin. So she'll be closer to home for her duties. I did hear her on with Donnie and Dolly this week, and she mentioned there'll probably be some travel in the job, but going to be based out of Vancouver for quite a lot of it. So it's a good move for her, and brings an impressive resume to the table.
Not only impressive resume, but the fact of how much knowledge she has about our lineup, because we were probably the number 1 team that she was scouting.
Yeah, well, she was at lots of Canuck games as a member of the Kraken scouting staff. So yes, yes, in fact, that may be what got her hired, or some of her ideas that were presented in the interview process.
Yeah.
And as the Pacific Northwest rivalry, sucks to be you, Seattle. We got her.
Yeah, they got Dave Tomlinson still, but as in the broadcast side, but we've made a claim on Cammi Granato, 1998 Olympic gold medalist.
Yes, yeah, a good hire, and again, building that staff, and there could still be one other hire there as well. So we'll have to keep an eye on that for sure. The other thing that I think is making a bit of
Kev,
go ahead,
just before
Sean.
you go, you said you had you wanted to touch on something before with
Thank
an
you.
announcement.
Thank you. I forgot
The goldfish brain got to you.
Goldfish, yeah, puppy brain. We also, speaking of ads, next Monday we are back for Canucks Talk, and we will have Area 51. I do some writing with them with the Kelowna Rockets for the WHL, and Sean Warren from Area 51 will be joining us on that podcast. They have some things going on. They're going to use. We're going to facilitate a little bit of that, and we'll talk some Canucks and chit chat with them. So I thought maybe. Yeah, so we're guest heavy. We're getting popular. People want to hang with us. We're like party people. Anyway, thanks for reminding me, Sean, about that. But the other thing that is catching some attention here is Jack Rathbone. Jack Rathbone had a 5-point night last week in Abbotsford. Chris is going to Abbotsford at some point here to catch an Abbotsford Canucks game. And there is the debate about timing to bring up Jack Rathbone now. So I thought let's have this discussion. And just for those who don't know, we had Peter Labardius last week on talking about Juuso Välimäki. And I feel that part of that conversation is a little bit relevant here to where I'm going, but I wanted to hear kind of where you are at with Jack Rathbone and do you want to see Jack Rathbone up with the big club or wow, that's quick. Tyler, you're on mute.
They gave him a shot at the beginning of the year and they sent him down. And I don't like the idea of the yo-yo approach with prospects. I mean, if you really have to go to him because you're depleted with injury, then fine. The decision's kind of made for you. But no, just let him continue his development at the AHL, I'd say, at this point.
If anything, make it like an end-of-season showcase, but we don't need to call him up any earlier than that, in my opinion.
Yeah, again, this is about patience and looking for next season and beyond. I think you want to find whatever the decision is. It needs to be in mind for grooming him to be a sort of maybe a second power play guy, likely on the third pair going into next season. Because unless you're moving one of OEL or Hughes over to the right side, it's going to be tough to beat out either of those players for a top 4 spot on the left side. So he's got 19 points in 18 games in the AHL this season. He had a 5-point night, which really helps the stat line there. But yeah, I think it's more about getting him game time, getting him reps, and making sure that he's ready to take that next step going into next season, as opposed to rushing him up at this point.
Yeah, we don't want to have a repeat of what DiPietro had to go through last season and basically lose a year of development time.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think just keep Rathbone down there. It's great he's producing, but I mean there's no need to have him up here at this particular point in time. Let him develop. And I know that we all want to see the young players play, but sometimes giving them the time to develop is better than putting them in a situation where they're not going to succeed. And Rathbone,
the confidence effect of that is the concern, right?
Yeah. I mean,
especially on defense too, because man, when it's not going bad, it really shows.
Yeah.
So there's no hiding out there on defense if you're struggling.
Yeah, I think one of the things I think needs to be, I brought this up before, but I think it would be interesting to look at the way in terms of how the waiver wire works, adding another year to defenseman eligibility as opposed to keeping him to forwards. Because I think it takes a little bit longer for a defenseman to adapt to the National Hockey League. I mean, it's so easy when you see a Makar, a Seider, Heiskanen, Hughes, Fox, even some of these young defensemen that are burst in, but there's so many other warning signs like Välimäki,
Rathbone. Yeah, but you mentioned Hughes and Makar. I mean, they burst onto the scene because of their offensive skills and how they're skating all over the ice and they're wowing you with that. But that's kind of like masking the parts that are maybe not as good defensively, right?
Yeah,
Jack Rathbone's not. not that. Need to let him develop properly as a defenseman.
Yeah. And I think also overall, I think the other thing, just to add to that, my other thing is just what the Canucks philosophy will be about developing players. Because we haven't had that discussion yet under the new regime. And I know that there's been a lot of talk about other things, mostly trades, but I think I'm interested in having a conversation about draft philosophy, scout philosophy, and development philosophy within this Canuck management group. And we kind of know a little bit from Pittsburgh, but we also have some new ideas in here from Emily Castonguay, Cammi Granato, and all of those.
Cammi, especially on the scouting side, yeah.
And
so it'll be if we get to hear any of them do some interviews here over the next few weeks, it'll be very interesting to read between the lines on stuff about that.
Yeah. I think someone who's getting lost in the shuffle here, and who is going to be a big part of player development specifically, Ryan Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think it's going to be very. I do think that we are going to, again, patience is needed here, and I think you need to make sure that your players are ready when they come up. And I think that the Flames did that well with Adam Ruzicka. They did what, honestly, Brad Treliving was almost at times too patient to until he got the right deal and got Toffoli at a price that is, I said, steep but reasonable. So I think it's going to be, you just have to look, you just have to, I know, I think it's Rathbone is someone that you want to be grooming for next season and beyond, not just to come up at this point.
Yeah.
And I understand the people wanting to see him, especially when you have someone like a Brad Hunt who hasn't really been solid enough that you're like, okay, no, he has to stay in the lineup. But what's best for Jack Rathbone at this point?
Yeah,
is the real question.
Yeah. Just on that, thanks for reminding me. I do think Kyle Burroughs has been he's been solid. He's been another guy that has been solid. I mean, he's willing to get in there and fight some of the bigger people. Which
that can't be understated, right? But between him and Shen, I mean, they provide an element of grit and toughness. And I know it's 2022 and it's a skill game and everything, but like that's still important. The Canucks were too easy a team to play against. Remember, we heard Stan Smeel talking about that when they made all the big changes. Those are two guys that make it harder back there.
Yeah,
that cannot be understated.
And two depth defensemen that have basically outplayed what their expectations were.
Yes.
On top of all that.
Yeah. Big boost for the whole team when you're getting that.
Yeah.
What's interesting is that you have like that right side has that grit. The issue is that with a Pullman and a Hominick is the cap hit may not be where they need to be, but with Burroughs and Luke Shen, you've got that, and they'd be, like I said, they're good 6-7 defensemen.
Yeah. There still needs some work there for sure. I guess anything else? I guess the only other thing is to touch on the Pavel Zacha possibility here. His name came up this weekend on whatever the intermission is now being called. Is everything on Sportsnet now being called 32 Thoughts? Is this anything American Freeman is just a 32 Thoughts?
The 32 Thoughts network.
Yeah. Is that what we'll change it? 32 Thoughts net. But
I think that second intermission segment is actually called 32 Thoughts now, though.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it is actually. Yeah. I don't always get to see it live because I'm calling games on Saturdays, but did this week. Pavel Zacha's name came up. I guess that to me, I guess it would depend on what you're picking up or what you're giving up.
Yeah, I think you're looking at potentially a buy low option there, or if there is a bigger deal involved, he's probably a sort of a second or third piece on that. Like maybe you're the roster player, an NHL roster player in a bigger deal. Maybe the Devils are interested in JT Miller type situation here.
And no New Jersey, you can't have Quinn.
But I think I think Rachel Dory was a worked in the Devils front office for a cup of tea there. I'm sure there's some familiarity with Pavel Zacha there, and I like him as a third sort of a third line player, someone who can maybe move up. He can play the wing, he can play center. He is a left shot, so I think that's the one issue is that if you're one spot that I think the Canucks need to find a way to address is getting a right shot center who can penalty kill and potentially even be on the second power play unit. So I think he doesn't necessarily fit that, but he's still a solid player and still someone who I think would add value to this team depending on the acquisition cost and depending on what he is a year away from UFA. He's an RFA in this summer, but he becomes a unrestricted free agent in 2023. So no matter what happens there, you're going to have to make sure you get a contract signed with him so that you're not multi-year contracts, so you're not walking into free agency. So it's interesting. Maybe it's part of a bigger deal. Maybe it's something separate and goes back to what I said earlier. Maybe the Canucks sell and buy at the same time.
Especially with us being a playoff bubble team. Yeah, that might be a legitimate possibility that they try and do both.
I don't have really strong opinions on Pavel Zacha, but in terms of the age, mid-20s, and can play multiple positions, I mean, that's always going to be an attractive option if a deal can be made there. But there's probably a few names out there that haven't been floated around that that would fit the same discussion.
Yeah, I think just with all of this, I think going forward, it's going to get a lot harder to get names out of this Canucks organization. I think we're already seeing it, but it's going to continue. That seal that seal of silence is becoming more and more there. And I know you mentioned this about Rutherford and the management group not happy about Garland's name out there. I think this keeps happening. This lid is getting shut. And I think it's a damn good thing in Vancouver for that to happen. I really do.
Yeah, it doesn't stop the leaks coming from the agents though. So I don't, it wouldn't put big expectations there. But one of the things that was annoying me as a Canucks supporter down the stretch of the Jim Benning administration was how many leaks there seemed to be around, like internal chaos and how things were being run, less so names in trade rumors. And, that kind of thing has to stop. I mean, they could be having enormous internal strife over certain decisions, but that stuff's got to be, the lid's got to be kept on that stuff, and the public image needs to be all the time. We're in control. We have a smart group of people here running things. Let us do our jobs, get off our case. We don't want to have things coming out into the public where it looks like there's internal disagreements and fighting between management and ownership and within management, and or the coach not being on the same page as the manager. It kind of got to that point at the end with the Jim Benning, Travis Green era. And that's just a killer for consumer confidence, but also I think for the players too. I mean, they're going to look at that the same way as the fans do in some respects.
And I think a lot of the names we are hearing are more just speculation, more than actual rumors too.
Yeah.
And these leaks may not be coming from Vancouver either.
Yeah.
And I think you are right, Kev. I do think he is sealing things shut.
There is a difference, folks, and this means so much more than just hockey, but it's relevant to this. There is a difference between journalism and content creation, and we have mixed the two together.
Yeah, and let's be clear, we don't do much journalism on this show. Okay, it's
content
creation all the way.
Absolutely, but in terms of media literacy and media critique, and this was relevant to sports.
Yeah,
we have mixed the two in terms of what we think is, just because someone is creating content, that doesn't mean that has been done in a journalistic manner.
And I'm glad that you mentioned that, Kevin, because I think that needs to be a daily reminder for a lot of people.
I honestly think that like a lot of these names, the Garlands, the Garlands and Besters specifically, I think were more speculation and thoughts of people more than actual rumors. I think the only name out there that I think we know that they are potentially thinking about shopping is JT Miller, because they know that if they can get the right offer, it's worth it.
And he's playing at a level this season which would
warrant
obviously create some interest there, for sure.
And it's not necessary, and but again, I'm going to say this again: you have to preach patience. And just because you have these teams have the opportunity to get JT Miller for 2 playoff runs doesn't mean that you have to trade him before the deadline. If you don't get the package that you're looking for, you set the market, and you set your internal expectations and market, and go, if you don't meet them, we're not trading him.
Yeah. I mean, lest we forget Joe Sakic and Colorado with Matt Duchene, right? He held firm for so long, and there was so much discussion around he's going to be traded. It's just a matter of who and for what, right? There was nonstop discussion about Duchene there for a while, and Joe Sakic waited until he got the deal he wanted, and it has worked out really well for his team ever since.
To get back to Kevin's original point, though, I definitely think there are some media members in the Vancouver sphere that are definitely guilty of that. So, there's my subtweet.
They definitely try and sell content creation as journalism, for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, if they have some contacts, then I can see why they're calling it journalism. But to me, a guy like Rick Dhaliwal is doing journalism, and some of this other stuff is
Rick's one of the good ones.
Just to add to Tyler's point, though, you look at a guy like Jake Debrusk from Boston. That was a situation. He asked for a trade back in December, and there's been no movement on that. And I mean, I know we've got the trade deadline, but there was a lot of people thinking that was going to be done right away. I haven't heard a single whisper about a Jake Debrusk trade.
Well, of course not, because once it comes out in public, you've now lost all your leverage to get a good deal.
Yeah.
So now they're really going to have to be patient.
How long did it take for Sam Bennett to get traded after that request came out? It was a pretty long time too.
Yeah. And I mean, this is a good transition, but even the whole Jack Eichel situation in Calgary, everyone was speculating that Calgary was in on it. The reality was Calgary wasn't in on it, not to the place that everybody was hoping or thinking in Calgary land. And it, that's, I just, but I understand it, because you need to create content for people to have discussions on, because there's so much stuff out there. But that doesn't necessarily mean that everything that you're hearing is accurate or it's been done with due diligence.
Or is as deep a discussion as it really was, right? I mean, that yes, an insider type like an Elliot Friedman might have a conversation with an agent, and a name may have come up in the discussion, but that it could be a very, very peripheral, high level, not much depth type of nugget of information, as opposed to, as an example, we'll just say JT Miller, because we're all pretty confident there's lots of interest in JT Miller. Like, those nuggets of information could be really more specific, actual trade proposal level of information, right? Yeah. You have to just everybody needs to put their own sort of critical lens in front of them here and take the information for what it is.
Yeah. Exactly. So let's transition to Jack Eichel here. We'll touch on a couple of other NHL issues here. But Jack Eichel is, from the first time since March 7th of 2020, is going to play a National Hockey League game. He's going to make his debut on Wednesday Night Hockey against Colorado Avalanche. All eyes. Tomorrow's going to be a fucking phenomenal night of hockey, by the way. Holy smokes. You've got Colorado, Vegas. You've got Anaheim, Calgary. Big division battle. You've got the gold medal Canada-U.S. women's game.
Mm-hmm. I'll be watching that.
Yeah, it's
going to be the hockey.
Hell of a hockey. All the hockey. Yes. But there's two things about this. I think good on Jack Eichel, and I'm really happy that we are overall going to see him in the lineup. But while that has happened, It appears some are saying, and I made the joke on Twitter, that Mark Stone has developed a touch of Eichelitis. He's been put on the LTIR. Some are saying this is Kucherov-itis as well. But this is, what are we thinking here? I mean, I'm absolutely, let's be happy for Jack Eichel. But I mean, those are the rules and we just have to deal with them, or does something need to change?
Oh boy,
I really don't know, because I don't know what Mark Stone's issue is, but Mark Stone and Max Pacioretty have both been battling injuries all season.
Yeah.
We did see this. We all saw this coming, though, right? We all knew there's going to be some sort of LTIR that will allow them to dress Jack Eichel, and then at some point, after the regular season's done, they'll be fully healthy and going into the playoffs. But until the NHL actually has the balls to actually shut this loophole, or if they even want to, it's just going to continue. I said, I know this will come off as like you'll as a Canucks fan, it sucks because the Canucks signed Roberto Luongo to a legal contract, and then they got burnt for it afterwards because Gary Bettman got his feelings hurt because someone else was able to outsmart him. That's literally what happened. So I don't know. It is what it is.
You have to ask yourself a couple of questions here. I mean, one, we haven't really, have we heard much real bitching from general managers or board of governor members about this from other clubs? I'm not hearing much about that. And at the same time, is it really inequitable in terms of certain clubs over others having this system in place? Like, I don't think there's a strong argument to be made there. I mean, are we going to complain if the Canucks turn around and pull this kind of a move?
I was actually having the same line of thought. I think that the reason why we haven't heard complaints from higher up, like upper management and ownership, is that basically they're thinking, yeah, sure, I don't like it when other teams do it, but if I have the opportunity to do it, I want to have that opportunity.
I have heard rumblings that there are teams out there that are not happy with this. But
I mean, it really jumps out when you're talking a player of the caliber of Nikita Kucherov, and now Mark Stone's going to go on LTIR, so Jack Eichel can play. So, but there's been other lesser profile examples of this happening in the past. I think in the Canucks Stanley Cup run season 2010-2011 was Sami Salo not on LTIR for quite a length of time, which enabled them to keep their defense together as they had cap crunch issues as well. So, and that the difficulty here, and I know we've talked about this before, but where do you draw the line and say, okay, this is the limit and this isn't? Like, you have to have the ability to add players and salary to your salary structure to make up for injured players. So I don't know, like it gets really murky when you start into this.
This one doesn't feel as bad as the Tampa one, because the Tampa one legitimately, they went out and traded for players who were injured and were not going to play for them to create the LTIR cap space that allowed them to do what they did. That was the issue I had with them. Yeah. With this one, it's a little bit irky. It's a little bit murky in terms of all of that. But it's, I don't know. Like I said, I think it's just
the boldness of it that bothers people.
Yeah. And like I said, it's allowed within the rules. I don't like it, but it's allowed within the rules right now.
I think if there is going to be a tipping point, it'll be if the teams that keep on abusing this loophole keep on winning Stanley Cups, then there will be enough groundswell movement against it that they'll probably close it at that point.
The other side of this, though, I think Mark Stone is legitimately injured. I really do. I think he's been injured most of the season. I'm of the belief, I have to believe he's injured. I don't think that that's not a dispute. But I think there's also that part of the fan bases out there that are expecting their teams to manipulate the cap. As Sean Shapiro tweeted, it's like if you're not manipulating the cap, you're not doing your job.
Yeah.
I mean, that's part of the reason why Toronto got Gilman from us, because look at all the cap magic they've had to pull off the past couple of years to make the math work to be under the cap.
Yeah, and some of the dislike for the Canucks back then probably had a little bit to do with that.
Possibly, yeah.
So if you're not cheating, you're not trying. Is that what we're saying?
Well, I mean, it's the old adage, but it rings true, doesn't it? Like it's competitive sports. It's professional competitive sports with a lot at stake, and if you're not cheating, really, you're not trying as hard as other teams are trying.
Well, if the league is allowing it, you're not actually cheating either.
Yeah, it's
I'll go to F1. They push the limits on what is allowed on technical specs on those cars as much as they can. Until they're told not to, they will continue to push. So I think that's kind of what's going on with the cap and the cap manipulation in the NHL right now. I still don't like it, but if it's allowed, it's allowed. You just have to deal with it.
And it also depends on what definition of cheating we're using. Like, are we talking about like to the letter of the rule, or are we talking about the spirit of the rule?
Well, yeah, everybody's problem is with the spirit of it, right? Like the LTIR system, the spirit of it is to temporarily, create cap space to replace that player and then bring them back at some point. Not just keep a ringer off your roster all season and then trot him out for the playoffs, then go and dominate and win a Stanley Cup, right?
That what made the Kucherov thing so egregious is because literally out the entire season and magically first round, hey boys, I'm back.
Yeah,
he wasn't the first player to do that though.
Yeah,
that was Patrick Kane.
Yeah.
But it's also interesting too. Just get going on the ice. He's centering Max Pacioretty and Evgeny Dadonov, and then they actually split up the misfit line. So it's Matthias Janmark on the left wing, Riley Smith on the right wing with Wild Bill Carlson in the middle, and then Chandler Stevenson with Nick Roy and Jonathan Marchessault. So I remember we had that conversation a while back in terms of where does Eichel fit? And it looks like they literally have a top line and then two sort of second lines now with Stevenson and Marchessault, and then Carlson and Smith as pairings that build around that, let alone a fourth line of William Carrier, Brett Howden, and Nolan Patrick. Like, that's, if they can get going, watch out. That's like, I know Calgary just made the trade for Toffoli, but if they can get healthy on that blue line with Alec Martinez coming back, I don't know. It's going to be tough.
I still would put Vegas as the favorite to get out of the Pacific Division, even with the Toffoli acquisition. I still think Calgary would need one more thing. And I think without Mark Stone, I think it's closer. But when Mark Stone gets back in the lineup, I do think Vegas is here. Calgary is still here. Mark Stone is one of the better all-round forwards in this game.
So as long as Robin Leonard is on top of his game, you gotta like Vegas's chances there.
There's the possibility that they're bringing back Marc-Andre Fleury. So,
they pretty much poured cold water on that.
That's hard,
and that was just ridiculous.
Yeah, from both sides of it there. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, that's good. I'm glad that happened because that seemed weird to me that was coming up. But anyway, it'll be interesting. Good for Eichel. Let's hope he's at 100% because of after all that he has been through. That is the one thing that I do hope for him for sure. And I think it is too bad that his return is being overshadowed by this conversation, because I think that for all that he has been through, he deserves to have this night. I'm not saying he deserves to have this night for himself kind of thing, but he deserves to be congratulated for all that he's been through with the surgery, controversy, the mess that he was in Buffalo, all of that. I think he deserves an opportunity to prove who he is.
Yeah.
And get back to playing hockey.
That being said, it was always going to be overshadowed. Like there was no way that unless Vegas actually traded away a bunch of players, which everyone knew. Everyone it was like they're not going to do it. They'll find an LTIR way out of this, and they did. Realistically, it was always unfortunately going to be overshadowed.
Yeah, fair. The other thing that has caused a buzz is the possible. I'm going to use the word possible because there are still indications that this may not happen. And I think a lot of people are touching wood that this doesn't happen. Is the new Arizona Coyotes arena? They are planning to go to the University of Tempe. The Arizona Coyotes are tweeting this arena, which was really smart of them to do because I mean Twitter just applauded that move with a standing ovation of wow, this is like great. I mean, I think someone tweeted like this is about as good as the AJHL arena in Camrose. It's the size of the Richmond Olympic Oval. It is not a good NHL look. I totally am with you on that. But if there is a way to create some sort of atmosphere out of this, that's what I am truly hoping out of Arizona. That is the best. It's lipstick on a pig for sure. And ultimately, they should be looking at moving this team out of Arizona. But Gary Bettman loves Arizona for some reason, and I just don't think that is ever going to happen. Gary Bettman appears that he wants to deal with this. He's more okay with this than moving a franchise.
He's married to that fourth largest U.S. media market.
Yeah. Well, and let's not underestimate how probably most of the other owners are on Gary's side with that. We don't hear from them. Gary's always the one that's the punching bag for all these kinds of negative stories. But, we talked about it offline today. I mean, this is just a disaster to be going to playing in a building that small. Like, it's just, yes, it could. I'm sure it'll be loud. I'm sure the fans that do come will be really into it and create as good an atmosphere as they can. But from a business point of view, it's just terrible. And then from a league credibility optics point of view, it's even worse than terrible. It's disastrous, really. So I know it's a short-term thing, but what is it going to be? 3 seasons?
That's not that short term. That's a lot of games. That's a lot of games. And if it was
one season.
And if they do manage to make the playoffs in that time, and they're having to play playoff games, and look at the lost opportunity there. I mean, even in Glendale, when the Coyotes made the playoffs, God bless the fans, they did make it out to Glendale to fill the rink and watch their team in the postseason. I know it didn't happen very much, but they were there at least, and there was no problem with the fan experience. There was a quality NHL facility, just in the wrong spot. I don't know. I mean, good on the people of Glendale for saying enough is enough with the Coyotes and with the NHL. At the same time, I feel bad for the taxpayers there. They now have this large arena with no primary tenant that I'm aware of. It's just and we in Canada like to keep bringing up Quebec City, but I mean, there's any number of places in the U.S. that have the facilities and a decent enough market to take that team and make a better go of it than what we're seeing in Arizona.
Chris, you said fourth largest media market. I don't think Phoenix is that high, and I've got a ranking for radio markets, and Phoenix area is 11th. And the market that they should be going, they should move this team to, if they're looking, if Gary is so absolutely focused on media market and growing the game in the States is Houston.
Yeah,
they're a bigger media market than Phoenix.
Yeah, and Houston has kicked the tires before about trying to get an expansion team, and if not Houston, Kansas City is another one. I think that wouldn't be a bad choice either, but definitely Houston has all the, you can, other than an ownership that wants a team there, I think you can check all the boxes.
Yeah.
Just as a quick aside, I mean, to me, the only way Quebec City's getting an NHL team is if the Senators move there, but that's another topic.
And as far as the whole playing at ASU, correct me if I'm wrong, the city of Tempe hasn't approved the new arena that they're ultimately wanting to move to after ASU, right?
No, and this isn't none of this. I think we're all talking about this as if this is done. This is not. It's not official yet. This is not done. Tempe hasn't approved it. It's just, and that's what's so backwards about this is, and even from the like the one thing I'm trying to spin a positive on this, but the way the Coyotes are handling us, and this is all going to be great. Like, oh my gosh, like why are you why are you asking your social media team to tweet this nonsense out? Like, that's what baffled me a little bit though too. I'm like, okay, I kind of get it. You want to build this, but this is not done. Like this is just poorly handled by the Arizona Coyotes. Not surprising. Something is poorly handled by the Arizona Coyotes.
I mean, I guess they subscribe to the theory that that any news is good news. So, I mean, there's lots of discussion about it today.
The other issue is that like they had the amount of upfront payments they had to make this deal work because of all the debacle that happened with Glendale.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they had to pony up. I think it was like 18 or 20 million up front just to make all the modifications to the ASU arena.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And the other thing is we have to touch on this. Sidney Crosby, 500 goals. Listen, the guy had an opportunity to get 500 goals a couple of nights ago. He blocked the shot first, and like this is a guy he's right now, like I know that he is a superstar. I know that everyone puts him on this superstar level, but right now the way that people are looking at him, he is one of the most underrated players, underappreciated players in the NHL. And I'm not saying that because is he a superstar, but I don't think people are appreciating enough the amount of work that Sidney Crosby has done overall to bring his game back. He's back from a significant injury. The guy just does absolutely everything. And I'll say it, if Connor McDavid was more like Sidney Crosby, Dave Tippett would still be a coach at Edmonton. And, and Oiler fans, you can be pissed off at me all you want. That is a fact.
I'm 100% behind you there, Kevin.
Yeah,
here. I'm pretty sure we're all behind. We agree with you there. Crosby knows what it takes to win, and he does it. And he was a little bit of he whined a little bit at the beginning of his career, but then realized that the game's not going to change for him. He has to change to the game to be successful.
Yeah.
And the best players in the world will do that. The best players who win do that. And if you can't, and if a player isn't going to do that, they aren't going to win. Sidney Crosby is a winner.
Yeah.
Flat out.
At all levels.
And just to throw a couple additional stats out there, I believe he's the 46th player ever to hit 500 goals, and he's the second current active player outside of Ovi who has done so.
And fitting that is, right, with the two of them and when they came in and all the comparisons and everything with those two. Should also add, how fitting is it that he gets number 500 against Philadelphia, a home game against the arch rivals, state rivals, not an empty net goal from Evgeny Malkin. I mean, it just couldn't be any more perfect for Sidney to get number 500. Congratulations, sir, on knocking down the door to the 500 club. That's pretty exclusive stuff there, as Chris was just pointing out.
Yeah, and not sorry, Friedman. Not going to happen in Toronto.
Yes, I'm so happy. I'm really happy that it happened in Pittsburgh in front of a full house as opposed to 50% in Toronto.
Yeah,
they're not even at 50% right now, are they?
I think they get it for that game on Thursday or Friday. So I just think it's. For me, I'm so happy he was able to do it at home, specifically, and against Philadelphia. Was it Peter Laviolette who said that Claude Giroux was the best player in the world when they were trying to play against the? It was also barn burner of a game too, for that matter. It was. Well, I see. I think it. I hope he took the over.
Yeah, I don't think Devin hit the tie there. Yeah.
Just had a Chris moment with surprise audio. Sorry about that.
Yeah. And by the way, just on a side note, Evgeny Malkin historically is ridiculously underrated too. Like that is the NHL owes him an apology for not putting him in the top 100 players of all time. That was nonsense.
What was that, like 2-3 years ago? And everyone was like, "What the hell?" Like,
yeah. Did you forget Malkin? Like, yeah. I just would imagine if Crosby scored that 500th goal in Toronto, some Toronto media member would write something about how close he was to becoming a Toronto Maple Leaf. God.
When I think of Pittsburgh and Toronto, I think of when Mario made his comeback from the was it Hodgkin's disease?
Non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
And he came and just absolutely torched the Leafs on Hockey Night again.
Yeah,
that's what I think of when I think of Pittsburgh and Toronto.
Yeah. Anything else we want to touch on?
I just want to say it was great to be back with you guys.
Yes, it's great to have you back
for a few weeks. Just various conflicts with hockey and other things I have going on. And then last week I had suffered a little bit of a knock at puck the night before, and it was just going to be too hard to concentrate through a whole podcast with you guys, and so I wanted to. But I'm happy to report I'm feeling much better. But yeah, it was going to be too difficult to come on there last Monday. So apologies for that. But it was good to see all of you, and including Devin. I'm not even forcing it when I say that. I actually missed you all. So it was nice to be back.
Tyler and Devin do love each other as human beings.
Oh yeah. Yes. This is a bit put on for the purpose of the show.
Yeah.
And just
friendly rivals.
As we were finishing up here, Tyler Toffoli has scored his first as a Flame.
Yes, and go and see the highlights of that one. We can't show them here, but apparently quite the nice goal. Flames fans chanting his name at the Saddle Dome tonight.
Yeah, that's good on the Flames there. We'll leave it here. How do we follow everyone?
I am Bearded Connect 03 on Twitter.
And I'm on Twitter at TNoble, TNOBLE.
I'm at Schneids on most social media.
Devin Gordhouse09. I am KEVOLE. Shifts and Pucks on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. You're watching live there. Subscribe to wherever you get your audio. We're back tomorrow afternoon. Ryan Pinder, Sportsnet 960, joins us for some Flames talk. And so join us then. We'll talk to you all very soon. Bye for now.